Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This video is in English because the student came from India and although he could speak German, he said his English would be way better. So we decided to just talk in English. And the subtitles you see, they will disappear soon because I'm just too lazy to put them all over the video. The lesson is about the major scale, the C major scale, how to visualize them on the fretboard and what kind of exercise you can do to get a better grip of them. So please enjoy the video. The great thing about the guitar is the shapes are always the same. So just like you did with a barrel chord. So you can move the shapes around. So this was C major, D flat major, D major, E flat major. On piano, this is hard because you have to change the fingering of the black and white keys, you know? So on the guitar, it's just moving up one fret. And now you need to learn how to orient on the fretboard, you know? So that's what we can do. So let's go back to C major. So first thing, where is the C? The first thing you should practice when you practice scales is playing them from the root, in this case C, to the highest note, to the lowest note possible, and then end on the root. But for now, because we want to get the sound of the major scale in our ears. So, and when you start here, it doesn't sound like the major scale at first. Or when you start with the E here, it sounds kind of Spanish-like. Because these are all different scales, maybe you heard about the modes and stuff like that. And that's why I say, at first concentrate. Always locate where is the root, in this case here. Or maybe here, you can also start here, no problem. You can start at any root, play to the highest, to the lowest note in this position possible, and back. So, and now you maybe heard it. It's kind of your ear makes a click when it got home at the root. Finally at home. And that is something we want to establish. Later, we want to establish that for the modes as well. But right now it's important to learn where's the C. You can also go first low and then high, no problem. From any root, you can go. Just to make it not too complicated, just start at one root. The first thing is to learn the shapes. Don't move the hand. Here is your shape. When you practice this shape, you start with a pinky. Just for the sake of hearing those click, those finally at home. So I would suggest you practice with a nice clean tone, with no effects, with a little bit reverb maybe, but not too much, so you can clearly hear everything. That's when you first time practice. When there is no bass, when there is no bad sound, if you know everything, then you can turn up a little bit the gain, the distortion, something so. But first, that's what my teacher told me when the first time I got in music school. So he said, play me something. And back then I was a big metalhead, a big Metallica fan. So, and it was in music school and So, and the first thing he said, okay, fine. And now we turn down the gain. And remember this, we always practice clean. And that's what I do since then. But you can, when you think you got it, you have it right, you can play it with no mistakes and with a good clean sound so that every note rings just fine. Then you go for it and do your sound that you want to play. But then you can be sure that it will sound good. That's my philosophy. Maybe someone tells something different, but that's how I practice. Still today, I always First thing, new things I practice always clean. This is some kind of ear training to really internalize the sound of the major scale. So, and that will enable you to play melodies later. Because you will hear a chord maybe, and you can establish the root in your head, and then you can hear ba 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 ba. And after that, you can, when you have learned to hear the scale, then you can play with it. Ba 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 ba. Because you can hear it, and then you can visualize it on the fretboard. And that's why we do this. Start on the root, end on the root, and each time you practice this, you hear ba 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 ba. So, and after some time, you know this sound, and then you can play melodies. You shouldn't always play in C, because not all songs are in C. This is something you can practice when you, for example, you now know here's the root C, and you memorize this shape. With here, the root is in the middle finger on the A string. So that's what you need to memorize. Just for the sake of showing, I can play it, no problem. Just to make it shorter, just to make this explanation shorter. Yeah, of course you play on all the strings. What I want to say is, when you have learned, after you learned where the root is, then you can move it around. And when I say play D major, you can say, okay, here's C, C sharp, D, and now I can play D major scale. So, and then you are ready to play in all scales. You need to memorize where's the root and what is the fingering. When the root is on the A string and I play with my middle finger, then I have to play this shape. And then after that, you can move it around. You can play it everywhere because it's the same shape. The shape doesn't change. But you need to know where's the root. The only new thing you need to memorize is where's the root in each of these 5 shapes. And then practice is, for the sake of ear training, playing it from the root to the highest note, to the lowest note, back to the root. When a student asks, should I do A or should I do B? I always say both. So, but wait, for now, always one step after another. Concentrate on one root because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So just say, I memorize one root in each shape. When you say, I know that, it's kind of boring to play it always from the same note, then you can say, oh, maybe there's a second root. I will play from that. The answer is always practice everything you can, but don't let that stress you out. So cut it back. Say I do the least amount of work. I start with one note. When I can one note, I can always go to the next note. That was just for learning the fingerings, what we did right now. And now you're right, you need to train something different. So just there are many ways you can practice scales. One of them is to do skips, like you said. I give you 2 examples you can try. These things are called sequences, scale sequences. And this is just like a row of numbers. Maybe you can, if I give every note a number, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. Huh? So, and now imagine you make rows of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. You know the system. I play it for you, then you can hear. I play it slow. Yeah. So I play the first, the second, and the third note. Then I go back to the second note, play the second, third. The idea is move 2 steps forward, 1 back. 2 forward, 1 back. So, I do it. Understand? So try it slow, and then do it backwards, like this here. Ah. So you can do it up and down. You will see, oh, I'm not sure of this note. I'm not sure of this note. Where's the next note? So, and you have to think about, what finger do I use? I have to go back and forth. So that's the easiest sequence. Yeah. Always use your pinky, because if you don't use it, it will stay weak. Yeah. This is called sequence of 3. Because as you can imagine, you can do sequence of 4. You can do 5. And so on. Every variation you can think of. But stay with the 3. Because that's enough work if you want to do it in every position and do it right. That's one thing you should practice. That's very good, because it gets kind of boring to play those scales up and down. So, and the first thing you can do after you have checked, I know it up and down, you can say, okay, now I do my sequence of 3s and practice this. And don't do it too fast. The next thing I urge you to do is use use a metronome. The metronome forces you to think and play in a steady pulse. So when someone practices on his own, maybe these 3s, yeah? Wo ging's jetzt? And now, where do I go? Yeah. And now, so you do, that was an exaggeration, but you always tend to, the areas where you do not know the notes, you play slower, and where you know it, you play faster.
Exactly.
And what you want to train is, turn the thing on, and so on. That's very, very important. And if that's too boring, then turn it up a notch. And so on, as fast as you want. But it's not about speed, it's about knowing the scales and the fingerings. It's a good training for all the fingers, for your mind to check out these things. I show you one variation of the skips. These are called thirds. I will explain it in numbers as I did before. We now do the first note, the C root, and skip one note. We jump over that note to the third note and then go one back. Then we jump over the next note and go one back. And that's simple, but you will find you need to sort the fingering, because sometimes it's not so easy to do that. And it sounds like this. There are endless variations, yeah? You can skip 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, whatever. Okay, that's the next topic. So decide if you want to do the sequence of 3s or if you want to do these skips. So, and stay with it till you can do it really good. And stay with one position till you can do it with no mistakes. That will mean a couple of days with this one position playing the thirds. And the time you get boring, then you can go to the next position and just repeat, review sometimes this position. Most people go too fast, and then they forget everything. Yeah, I practiced this once, but now it's gone. Yeah, that's bad. So then you wasted your time. So the first is locating the root and playing it. up and down. The second is take a sequence and learn it in the fingerings, slowly. Don't be too fast. So now your question, how to memorize the notes on the fretboard. There's only, in my opinion, only one way that's really good. You need to memorize it on each string. You take this thing and play it on the click.
Yeah, I know, right? This is enough to practice, right?
Too fast. I can't do it that fast, but
Yeah.
you did get it.
Yeah.
So at first, on every click, maybe you give yourself a goal like 60 beats per minute or 80 or whatever you want. And when you can do it to the metronome on every click, then you can learn the next note. So remember what I said. When the student asks, should I do A or B? I always say both.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at first, don't overwhelm yourself. At first, stay here.
Yeah.
12 frets. Nothing to worry. So you can always get later to that. When you practice, you should not use the backing track first. In my opinion, at first, it's a distraction. Because on the backing track, there changes the chords. But you want to learn, that's your training. Ba bi ba bi ba bi ba bi ba bi ba bi. You want to learn how that sounds. Ba bi ba bi ba bi. And you don't want to learn how it sounds. Ba bi ba bi ba bi ba bi ba bi ba. It's a different sound with different chords. You want to memorize the root and then learn that sequence, how it sounds. You can use a metronome. You can also use a drum beat. That's maybe a little bit cooler than just click, click, click. So you can use a beat, a real beat. And if you want to have a sound, there are so-called drone sounds, drones. If you type in YouTube, drone, D-R-O-N-E, drone. So it's just like one big fat note of C. When you have practiced and say, and now I want to have fun, please go and use a backing track. But when you say, now it's practice time, it has to be clear and defined and no distraction and anything. With the notes, that's the second thing you should practice. So, and the C, you were already good, so that just needs a little bit with a metronome. The next note you should practice, in my opinion, would be F sharp. So locate on every string and then practice it to the metronome. So, because C and F sharp are the longest distance. So, they're far from another. So you can't relate to the one note you just learned. That makes it harder, but better for the orientation. If you would choose the next note is C sharp, you would always look where's the C and then do one.
And then yes.
So that's too easy. So I will make it hard because you will get better this way. For example, in jazz, there may be changing key every 2 bars. So that's why it sounds the way it sounds. For example, and maybe you could hear da da da. Okay, change key. All right. Change key. So it can happen, of course. And for example, with the music of Joe Satriani, there can also be some kind of G-Lydian, B-Lydian, another key, C-Lydian, another key. So they can change always. Most backing tracks are just in one scale because it's easier to solo on it. But don't worry, this will come if you practice from the C and train your ear to hear. And with this drone, for example, because that gives you a big fat C, and then you play the scale up and down, and then you will learn how the scale sounds. Because you always have those C. If you practice these things, you will get better, I promise. When you have located all the F sharps, when you know where they are, then you should say, that was the first question I had to you, where is F sharp major? Then you play those shapes you learned in F sharp. Then you're not always playing C major. Then you say, okay, now I know all the F sharps on each string, and now I can play all 5 fingerings for F sharp major, because the fingerings are the same, just the position is different. Hey Leute, vielen Dank, dass ihr das Video bis hierher geschaut habt. Alle Noten, alle Tabs zu allen Übungen, die gibt es auf meiner Patreon-Seite. Den Link findet ihr unten in der Videobeschreibung. Und ansonsten, wenn es euch gefallen hat, lasst mir einen Kommentar da, lasst mir ein Like da. Und wenn es euch nicht gefallen hat, dann könnt ihr auch schreiben, warum und wieso und was ich beim nächsten Mal besser machen kann. Und ansonsten sehen wir uns beim nächsten Video. Bis dahin, ciao.